A malicious Android app has over 100 million users. Thousands of Android apps have backdoors that you probably don't know about. Twitter has begun to share more data with advertisers, and there's not much you can do about it. Firefox has got another zero-day vulnerability, and once again a PC tech support application has become a vulnerability for hackers to attack your system. All this on This Week in Cybersecurity with me, the Code Curmudgeon. So we begin with an Android app that is malicious and has over 100 million users. Now, these things often exist in Android. They sometimes exist in iOS as well, so I'm not going to make any comments here about one versus the other. But this particular one is called Super VPN, and it's just a nasty little thing. And if you're using it, you should remove it immediately. And go downvote it too, so that other people will eventually see that this is happening. This is one of those things you have to watch when you're using system-level apps on your Android device, things like VPNs, virus scanners, performance monitors, etc. You need to be really careful that they're actually coming from reliable sources that are good companies that aren't going to do bad things with it. It's best to get them from the big vendors that we're used to, Microsoft, Symantec, etc., from Google itself, from Samsung, things like that, so that you don't run into problems, because a lot of times it is weird little problems. And as we see here, the number of people that have downloaded it and not complained is no indication of correct behavior or safety of a particular application. I wanted to say a little something about VPNs, because right now, with so many of us working from home, there's some confusion about it. VPNs have multiple purposes, and the primary purpose once upon a time was to get us from our external location into a safe corporate location. So a lot of the corporate servers just aren't accessible from the outside world because they have no need to be. My website, sure, needs to be outside, but it might be that I have a corporate data system, maybe my source control system, other things that I have that are just inside the firewall, as it were. And so if I want to use them from home or on the road, I need to have a VPN to create an encrypted tunnel that is safe for both me and for the office. Now, back in the old days, people used to use VPNs. They would route all the traffic. That was the simple way to set it up. So if I was on the road and I took my notebook and attached it to the VPN, all of my traffic on the notebook went through the corporate servers, which these days is kind of silly, because we're all using things, YouTube, Netflix, Facebook, Twitter, etc., lots of streaming services, and if everybody in the company suddenly routes all of their traffic through the company, this becomes a huge problem for the company's performance needs, and it's also creating more vulnerabilities because more traffic's going through it. So most companies these days set up the VPN so that only the traffic that's going to the company gets routed through the VPN. And this is important to remember, because I see a lot of people turning their VPN on to use something like Microsoft Outlook, which the VPN makes no difference there. And a lot of people mistakenly believe that the VPN is somehow protecting their system. It is not. The VPN's role is to protect the data. It creates an encrypted tunnel from point A to point B. It does nothing to protect the systems on point A and point B. So if you're turning the VPN on just because you think you're protecting yourself, you're really not doing anything. You need to still have good firewalls and things like that, anti-malware software on your system. Today, with everyone remote working, you probably should be using a VPN, but your best bet is to use the corporate VPN. If in doubt, ask your corporate IT people. So our second story is also about Android, and again, I don't want to put people off Android. I constantly switch back and forth from iOS to Android, both in tablets and in smartphones. So they both have their ups and their downs, but it turns out that thousands of Android apps have undocumented backdoors. Now, backdoors are a way for somebody to get in the system, and there are legitimate reasons to do it. I have seen, for example, telecom vendors putting backdoors in modems in people's houses, in their routers and things like that, so that when the person who doesn't know anything about tech gets confused, they can easily reset the system. While this has a very positive upside in the sense that It's cheaper for the company. It's also better for the user because they get quicker support without somebody coming to their house. And right now, in an age of lockdown and shelter in place, we really don't want strangers coming into our house. We don't know if they're sick. So there is positive upside. The problem is that backdoors are easily discovered and easily abused. And so, again, with telecom vendors, they usually set up your Wi-Fi with some variant of your last name or home address or both, and the password is also some formula based on your address. And these formulas are known and published. So, back in the day, Time Warner was using something very specific, and you could drive up and down the street and find Time Warner customers for Time Warner networking, internet, and you could log into their router and reset things. So backdoors are very problematic. Backdoors have been there as long as we've been doing electronic communications. The phone systems have backdoors in them. This is actually why phone calls can be traced. It's not that phone system can't be secure, it's that the government's mandate that it is insecure. And it's funny because this weakness that allows police to spy on people also allows people to send you crazy phone calls and you don't know where they're coming from, or other people to spy on your calls. So even in something simple like a regular voice phone system, we see the back door providing benefits to law enforcement, not to really anybody else, and lots of detriments to the idea of secure, safe communication. Twitter. There was some stuff in the news this week about Twitter. Obviously, I follow a lot of tech news and cybersecurity news, and I saw that Twitter had done something to change their privacy policy. And while I do cover privacy here a little bit, it's not my primary focus. Usually it's privacy combined with something else, so I hadn't investigated yet. And shortly after seeing that, I was logging into Twitter to share something, and I got this little pop-up. Hopefully I captured it. I think that I did. If not, I'm pointing at nothing. But I got this little pop-up, and it told me that they were going to start sharing more of my data, and that there was really nothing I could do about it. This isn't one of those controllable settings. It's not one of those opt-in. You're opted in. I'm thinking this might be a GDPR violation, and maybe even a CCPA in California violation, that you're sharing data and the user can't do anything about it. And they're only semi-informed. Again, GDPR requires affirmative informed consent, meaning you first have to tell me what you're collecting, why you're collecting it, who you're going to share with under which circumstances, and allow me to opt in or refuse the service. So I suspect Twitter's going to get in trouble fairly quickly from GDPR, and this will probably be relatively expensive just to make sure that they understand the ramifications. For my sake, I don't consume Twitter much. I do look at it quickly to look for hot topics and stories. I mostly help share things, as most of my followers know. I'm out there talking about cybersecurity events. But I instantly just went and deleted it from all my mobile devices. So there you go, Twitter. You want to spy on me? Forget it. Firefox 0 day in the wild. Okay, so I'm not going to pick on Firefox today. All major browsers have vulnerabilities. Look, the bigger and more popular an application is, the more hackers are going to be looking at it. So Firefox, Safari, Chrome, Explorer, etc. constantly have hackers looking at them. And all of these companies spend a lot of time trying to make sure that they're patching. Occasionally a hacker gets out in front of them, and that's what a 0 day really is. It's the amount of time between when a hack is published and a hack is fixed. And the 0th day, the first day, is that the hacker started, releasing hacks against it or releasing information about it so other hackers could use it. So this isn't about white hats who are doing, checking things and then working on bug bounties, etc. This is about the bad guys who are trying to break into your systems and break into your browsers and things like that. So the moral of the story is you got to keep your browsers up to date constantly. You get that little warning in Chrome that it turns yellow. Hopefully you never see it turn red. That means you're not updating soon enough. But it, up in the top, it turns yellow. I would take a picture of it, but mine isn't yellow, so I can't show you. In Firefox, you need to click those little 3 dots up in the corner, and then you hit help and about, and eventually you get a pop-up dialog. I might film that, I might not. But just make sure you're checking that it's up to date, and probably you should set your browsers on auto update feature, because it is just one of those high profile things, because it's out in the wild on the internet. So not only can hackers find hundreds of millions of users, but they can find these because they know they're exploring the internet, so they're easy to reach at. So, keep your browsers up to date, people, especially Firefox right now. If you're using it, go check it and make sure you're up to date. And finally today, I like to put amusing or ironic little stories at the end of This Week in Cybersecurity. This one is it's constantly kind of funny to me. PC vendors tend to make these funny little sysadmin applications on their systems, and it's again for their good and for our good, in the sense that lots of times things can go wrong with PCs, and it requires painful phone calls or sending the system in, and a delay and an expense and a hassle. And so the goal is they put these little applications in that have low-level access, can monitor things, create logs, run diagnostic tests, and maybe even recover you from catastrophic, stupidity on your part. So it's all really cool, but unfortunately they frequently go wrong. And I've seen this with big vendors. This one, it was HP. I've seen IBM before. I've seen, Lenovo, which I guess is the same as IBM now, or no longer the same as IBM. But, it's not to pick on any one vendor. People who make Windows PCs in particular have to do this because they don't know what hardware is going to be there. You're attaching to a random monitor, a random mouse, a random keyboard, a random set of speakers. You added in a random video card, a random GPU, a random sound card. Pretty soon this PC is completely unrecognizable from anything the vendor's ever tested. So it makes sense that they have these, but it's just funny because they have such low-level access, or high-level access, depending on how you view it, but they have administrative access. They make a pretty good target because they can do nasty, nasty things that normal applications can't do. Sometimes these applications have performance problems or cause blue screens. Sometimes they cause security vulnerabilities. Again, it's kind of funny because it's kind of ironic. I understand the need, and probably overall they're better for their users than not, but it is funny. And again, the lesson today of most of these, just patch it, make sure it's up to date, make sure that you're downloading firmware updates for your computer and updates for that core software that comes with the system. Some of it is bloatware, some of it isn't bloatware. It's useful, but you need to make sure that it stays up to date. So with that, hey, thumbs up if you like the video. Hit that bell to make sure you get notifications. Share with your friends. If there's things you want to hear, let me know in the comments, and everybody stay safe out there.